Hello again, welcome back to the channel. I hope you've been enjoying your choice of literature. I wanted to talk today about the 13 and a half Lives of Captain Bluebear. This book is by a German author. His name is Walter Moers. He wrote quite a number of books, and he's an illustrator as well. Now, I picked up this book because I was intrigued by the cover. I didn't actually notice the little blurb from the Washington Post that called it equal parts J.K. Rowling, Douglas Adams, and Shel Silverstein until later. Now, I'm not so sure about the J.K. Rowling part. Douglas Adams and Shel Silverstein, sure, the illustrations do lend to that particular comparison. I'll get into the Douglas Adams part in just a second, but this book is set on Earth, but it's set on an Earth of the past when there were a lot more continents. Obviously, there was the North America, South America, Africa, Asia, Australia, Antarctica, all that stuff. They're all there. However, there's also several other continents that have since sunk into the sea. One of them being where the action takes place, Zamonia. Some of the other books by this German author are also set in this fictional continent of Zamonia. This book was published in English in 2000. Apparently, it was first published in 1999. And then came to be published in English in 2000. It is a fantasy novel. There's a lot of folklore and myth and legend. In fact, Atlantis comes in to play in the novel here. Anyway, the reason it's called 13 and a half Lives of Captain Bluebear is that blue bears, as is told in the beginning of the book, is that blue bears have 27 lives. So this covers the first 13 and a half lives of Captain Bluebear. Half-life at the end, the chapter is kind of, while the thought is complete, and the end of the book is clear, Bluebear hasn't moved on from that 14th life. So he's still in that 14th life when he ends the book. So, and it is implied that maybe there's room for more adventures for Bluebear later on. Anyway, Bluebear is we first meet him in the ocean. He is rescued from a whirlpool by mini pirates. He's floating in a nutshell. That's how small he is. He's floating in this nutshell in the ocean, and the mini pirates rescue him. Now the mini pirates are good sailors, but terrible pirates. Terrible in the fact that they're so small, nobody even knows that they exist. They've never taken over a ship. They've never done any. They've tried, but the ships are just too big, too massive for them to even notice that there's this tiny boat in the ocean that's trying to capture them. So Bluebear learns to sail from the mini pirates, and when he gets too big, he's marooned. They just can't take him with them anymore, and they leave him on an island and go back out to sea. And what follows is the adventures of Bluebear. So he's first saved by the mini pirates. Later he meets up with hobgoblins, who are semi-ghost invertebrates who feed on emotions, according to the book. He is taught how to speak by babbling billows, or I shouldn't say they are talking waves, and they teach him how to speak. He gets rescued by a pterodactyl from an island that tries to eat him. He becomes that pterodactyl's navigator for a time, helping him to rescue other people from their own dangers. It could be self-inflicted dangers even. But what they do is they swoop in at the last minute and rescue people. They actually rescue a bunch of puppies from a bolog. A bolog is a cyclops that can be anywhere between 50 feet tall to 2 miles tall. And they can survive without their heads. They pull their heads off at some point and put it down and don't remember where they put it anymore. He later goes to Nightingale's Academy, which is run by the nocturnal math professor, Abdullah Nightingale, who has 7 brains and is very, very smart. He attends this institution with 2 other students, Qwerty, who is a blob from the 2364th dimension. He fell through what's called a dimensional hiatus, or that's what the book calls it, is a dimensional hiatus. We would probably think of it as a dimensional rift, but dimensional hiatus, whatever. And he ended up on Earth. There's also an alpine imp named Freda who is just covered with hair. And they are taught, and this is where that link to that, or that comparison to Douglas Adams comes in, because here at the Nightingale's Academy, an encyclopedia gets implanted in Bluebear's brain. Now, I'm not saying that the professor cuts him open and sticks an encyclopedia in there. No, what I'm saying is that because of what happens, he now has this encyclopedia in his head that responds to him and his thoughts. So as he's going through, he may encounter a situation, and the definition, the description of what it is he's facing, the situation or the place or whatever, pops into his head, and so he gets the encyclopedia version of what it is. And so we have this, so they don't have to spend time with the exposition between the characters. We're getting it from the encyclopedia that's in Bluebear's brain. He also meets the Troglotroll. The Troglotroll is the most reviled creature in Zamonia. Everybody hates the Troglotroll. I don't want to go too much into the Troglotroll. He does meet the Troglotroll several times during the course of the book, and the Troglotroll always manages to trick him. Once he gets out of there, he ends up in the Great Forest, where he encounters the Spider Witch. It's a giant spider with magical powers, so it's called the Spider Witch. He ends up in the 2364th dimension and meets Qwerty again. He treks across the desert, a desert made of sugar and mushrooms, apparently. And he finds a city that, in a way, doesn't even exist. He ends up trapped in a tornado that ages him. When he escapes, he has to make his way through a bolog's brain. He finds the head of the bolog, and he has to make his way through the brain. He ends up in Atlantis, where he becomes the King of Lies. And then he ends up on the largest ship in existence, the Moloch, and has to fight against a sentient element. Anyway, there's all these adventures. Now, one of the things that I found about the book that I didn't really like is that it's called 13.5 Lives of Captain Bluebear. And I would more say I would more credit this as the 13.5 Adventures of Captain Bluebear. He doesn't actually die in any of these. and have a new life or is reborn. Now, yes, you can say that at any point in your life, you are renewing yourself or something of that nature, but you wouldn't necessarily say that you had now a new life. I mean, I guess some people do, but most people say that they're embarking on a new step in their life or something of that nature, that it's still their one life that they have, and not that they are now having a new life. There is the connotation of being born again, which is a religious connotation. And there is a change from your old life to your new life, but that is more of a metaphor for embarking on that religious path, not necessarily that you die and are actually physically born again. It's very much symbolic of the transformation, whereas this, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, that it's the 13 and a half lives, and so I'm reading and thinking, well, he's going to die and somehow come back to life. It does say that it's the 13 and a half lives, and right at the beginning, it says that blue bears get 27 lives. So I'm thinking, what is this, like a video game where you die and you have another life? I did some looking because I thought, maybe this has connotations like a cat. We say a cat has 9 lives. And so I was looking at where that came from. And because I was thinking, well, is this because people actually thought at one time superstitiously that cats did have 9 lives? Or was this that people, because of a cat's ability to get itself out of dangerous situations, because they're usually quick and nimble and all that other stuff, that they are able to avoid danger, and so it only seems like they have 9 lives as opposed to they die and they're born again. Anyway, that being said, personally I would have termed this the 13 and a half adventures of Captain Bluebear, something of that nature rather than 13 and a half lives. And then as far as the whole book goes, I found it okay. I didn't hate it by any means, but I didn't think it was that great. Now, this could be down to the translation. I don't know. It seemed to flow pretty well. And I've read other books that have been translated. I've read several of the Vampire Hunter D series by Hideyuki Kikuchi. And the first one, the translation was very, very rough. And so I don't know, once again, I don't know if that's because of the author or because of the translator. Now, I've read, I want to say, around 14 books in that series, and the series is like 20 books long. So I've read more than half, I think. And the later translations in the series, the later books, they were much better. So I don't know, once again, if the translation, if the translator got better at translating or the author got better at writing. I don't know. I would assume that the writer did at least a decent job, otherwise it never would have published and would never have gotten to 20 volumes, and that it's more that the translator was learning as he went along. Anyway, like I said, it's somewhat hard to pinpoint with a translated book whether it was the author's skill or the translator's skill that made it as rough as it felt. You know what? Does that make sense? As I said, I enjoyed the book. It was okay. I think it's worth a read. Maybe not 2 reads, but it's worth a 1 read at least. It kind of at least appears that it should be humorous, and I didn't find that it was very humorous. There were a couple places where there was like a pun or two that I smirked at, but I didn't chuckle. I didn't laugh. When I was reading the Discworld books by Terry Pratchett, I was laughing at those all the time. They are hilarious. Now, again, this may be down to a sense of humor. This was written by a German, so maybe it's more in the German vein of humor than in the American vein of humor, and I may not understand the German humor well enough to really get the humor from the book. Anyway, it was, as I said, worth at least a read. If you've read the 13.5 Lives of Captain Bluebear and you had a different take on it, please let me know. I actually would like to know if other people have found this better, worse, what have you. Let me know. As always, like, subscribe, share, all that other stuff. And until next time, enjoy what you're reading.